On this episode, we speak to Amy, who's originally from Canada and gave birth in Sapporo.
I became really obsessed with birth videos throughout my pregnancy, really obsessed with it.
She has 2 birth experiences to share, one at a university hospital, the other at a midwifery clinic.
I use Sapporo Maternity Women's Hospital, which is a popular hospital here in Sapporo, and it's a good hospital. But yeah, 27 weeks, I started thinking, what am I doing? I've always been interested in home birth and more natural birth, so why am I at the hospital, even though it was a good experience?
And she shares with us how her placenta tasted.
Well, one thing that's uniquely Japanese, she prepared it kind of like sashimi, sashimi, on a long white rectangular plate with some shoyu and sesame oil and some little salt on the side.
Hello and welcome to Birth Stories of Japan. Amy, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited too. And congratulations on your second pregnancy.
Oh, thank you so much. We're so excited. So excited. Very surprised, but happy surprised. So that's always good.
I think it's so cool that you're not going to find out the sex.
Yeah, this time, well, I've always not wanted to. But there's already been a few times where I've questioned it, I wonder if I should find out or...
Have you had any dreams about the sex?
No, I haven't. Oh, actually, I've had one, but more so my husband. He's had more dreams about the gender rather than me. But all of it, I'm like, let's just not talk about it because we have no clue really. But yeah, so it'll be cool to find out once baby does get here. But yeah, so just a little bit about how we got connected was I put a post up on Facebook asking if anyone would like to share their stories, and I think a few days later you contacted me about your first birth experience and that you've already shared your story on a podcast, haven't you?
Yes, on Pregnant in Japan podcast, which I don't think is making new episodes, but you can go back and listen to the old ones.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I was so shocked because I had never heard about it. So to hear that there is a podcast already out there for people is so amazing. So I will link your episode on that podcast in this one. So if people want to go back to that episode, they can refer to it.
Sounds good.
But another thing that we have in common is that we were both in Sapporo for a birth, weren't we?
Yes. Yeah, I wish we had overlapped. And actually, before you had posted about this podcast, I was aware of you because on the Ekubo Birth Center blog, which is where we both gave birth, I had seen a foreigner couple, but with stickers on your faces. So all I knew is okay, rugby husband, they're both Kiwi. And then I saw you had posted in a Sapporo international group on Facebook. And I thought about reaching out to you, but I didn't yet because I didn't want outside information clouding my decision about Ekubo. But then once I saw that you were doing this podcast, I thought, oh, she's really into birth too. It's time to reach out.
Yeah, I know. I was so happy to get your message. And that's another reason why I'm really excited to talk to you today and for you to share your story is because, you have another experience at the same place that I gave birth at, literally the same midwifery. So it's going to be so cool to just reminisce in your story, but also be able to compare, if we had similar or different experiences. So
yeah,
I'm really
definitely.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're the only mother I know personally who's given birth there too, even though it's quite a popular place in Sapporo.
Yeah. So before we start, I'd love if you could just introduce yourself and your family.
Sure. My name's Amy Suzuki. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and that's where I first met my husband, Kentaro, and he is from Shiraoicho, which is a small city about an hour and a half outside of Sapporo. So we met in Canada, but I had wanted to live in Japan again. And previously I lived in Shikoku, but this time we decided to live in Hokkaido to be close to his family. So now we're coming up on our 5th year living in Sapporo. And right now I'm in my shufu life. I'm stay-at-home mom, and I'm gonna return to some part-time English teaching in April, and I'm also an artist. And Kantaro is a kaishain. He's a office worker in marketing at a produce company. And we had our first baby, Ritsuko-chan, in November 2020. And then our second baby, Kojiro, was born in September 2024.
Awesome. So I'd love for us for this episode, it'll be a little bit different in the sense that we're going to talk about Ritsuko's birth. But if people want to hear it in more detail, they can go back to the other podcast, the Pregnant in Japan podcast, to hear the full story. But we want to hear about it a bit first so that when we talk about Kojiro's birth story, we've got something to compare to.
Yes.
So let's get into Ritsuko's story. Do you want to talk about your journey into pregnancy and also the pregnancy itself? What was that like?
Becoming pregnant was straightforward and easy for us. I used fertility awareness method, just like keeping track of my
Mm-hmm.
menstrual cycle and
Mm-hmm.
becoming aware of the fertility window. So that was pretty simple. We waited a long time to do the test. I think we both knew I was pregnant, but we were in no rush to test. But the test was just kind of for confirmation. This was also at the beginning of COVID when I found out I was pregnant. And also I knew I've always known I wanted a baby, so moving to Japan, I had already accepted and was aware I would give birth in Japan. So I was already okay with the fact that epidural is not the standard, and I was open to natural unmedicated birth at that point.
Wow, you're organized.
Sort of. And also, I had worked at the Japan Foundation in Toronto, so I had access to speaking with other Japanese moms about what birth in Japan is like. And yeah, I had
Gotcha.
an open mind to it. And the pregnancy itself was great. Like typical first trimester, nausea, a lot of vomiting, but overall, no big problems. And I love being pregnant. So for that one, I use Sapporo Maternity Women's Hospital, which is a popular hospital here in Sapporo. I think popular in general. Had you heard of it? Did you consider it?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people were telling me you should go there. You should go there.
Yeah, it's popular in general because it's a university hospital, it's downtown, but also I think it's especially popular among international families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how was the care there for you? What did you think of the facility?
The facilities are great. They're really like I had looked at a few places and they said, "Oh, that one is kind of known for its hospitality," like in terms of the postpartum stay. Um, yeah, it was good. But because it's a big hospital, like the wait times for appointments were always long. Even if I chose the first slot in the morning, there was still wait time because they double book patients. And like any big hospital, um, it it can be difficult to see the same doctor at every appointment. So that could cause longer wait times too if you're waiting for a specific doctor.
And then, so how about your last trimester and then going into labor? Do you want to take us through your birth story now?
Sure. Last trimester, everything was still good. I still had a lot of energy in my third trimester of my first pregnancy. Still working up until I think 31 weeks. But just getting like the usual third trimester fatigue. Um, Curious about how the birth would go. Even though I said I was totally open to unmedicated, I did inquire about epidural at the hospital, but I was told, oh, they're totally booked up. So, like in my first trimester, I had inquired, but they said all the spots are already taken. So I had set in my mind early on, no epidural. Her birthday was 6 days before her estimated due date. and it was Kantaro's day off, which I think my body knew this is a good
Yeah.
day to give birth. Um,
Awesome.
I just had some mild cramping in the morning at 6 a.m. and vomiting, and I just wanted to stay at home as long as possible. And then we went to the hospital at 10:30, and I had one internal check, and they said, "Oh, you're already like, I think 6 centimeters dilated, or 6 or 7." And then Kantaro like did some of the paperwork in the lobby area, so we were separated. And I think my progress did stall a little bit when we were separated. One nice thing is that they were making an exception for me. This is November 2020, so partners weren't allowed at that time. So yeah, we were fortunate that they were allowing him to even be at the birth. Yeah, so pretty shortly after I was in the hospital, we basically went straight to the labor and delivery room. And then he had left to grab some snacks, and we had to call him back and say, "Come in." So in the labor room, I had to first put on the hospital gown, and like I think after one more internal check, they were like, "It's time to push." And I was just in total disbelief. Like I didn't feel mentally ready because it was all happening kind of so quickly. And also, I had met the midwife who would catch my baby just that day. So that was like a kind of a shock, but she was really nice and competent and great. Yeah, so I was laying on the typical bunbendai, the hospital bed, and I had the fetal heart rate monitor across my belly. And one annoying thing is that I couldn't move. Like even if I moved to my side, the monitor would beep in a certain way. So I was told to try to stay still as much as possible, which is tough to endure contractions, just trying to stay straight and still. Yeah. Oh, also, I wanted to add that I had wanted to deliver in a tatami room so that I would be able to change positions during labor, but they were just all 4 rooms were booked up that day. So yeah, anyways, I'm going through contractions. They were not painful, but felt like a lot of pressure. And Kentaro was with me. And luckily, my doctor, who I'd been seeing for most appointments, was there that day. So she came in, which was great. And I was told when it was time to push, and I worked with my contractions, and it was very coached pushing. Like they told me to push 3 sets, like with each contraction, try to do 3 strong pushes. So I'm not sure if it was like this for you, but with Ritsuko, she didn't come out all in one go. She was like, her head was coming out, retracting in a bit, coming out a bit more. So that was something that we didn't fully expect. Kentaro was surprised too.
Mm.
And also the midwife was like manually trying to like stretch the cervix and like trying to make room.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And she apparently, no, another observing doctor had suggested episiotomy, which I really didn't want. So luckily my own doctor, who was familiar with my birth plan and desires, advocated for me, and I didn't have to get one. Yeah, so the total pushing time was just 45 minutes. It was very fast. And in the end, I did have some tearing, some second-degree tearing, but I'm really happy that my doctor advocated for me against episiotomy, and also they were suggesting to use Pitocin to create stronger contractions to really get her out, but I said that I really didn't want that, and they let me try myself, and I put forth more effort after I knew that the threat of Pitocin was
Yeah.
there. Oh, and also my friend had given birth 3 weeks prior at that hospital, unmedicated, no tearing. So I had confidence and inspiration from her that if she could do it, I could do it as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Hearing other people's stories just makes you so empowered, eh? Just knowing
Yes,
that it's possible.
yes, definitely. I think that's why this
Yeah.
podcast is good, and other resources of hearing positive,
Yeah.
great birth stories.
100%. Absolutely. And then, was there anything else about the birth that you'd like to mention before we go into your recovery?
just it was incredible, you know. One minute she was in my body, and the next minute she was
Yeah,
out.
awesome.
Um, she was Genki. She went right up to my chest. It was really nice. We could enjoy like a nice solid 1 hour when Kantaro was allowed to still be there. And both of us were just totally joyful, but also just shock, mostly in shock.
Yeah, oh, that's so beautiful. And then how was your postpartum recovery? So did Kentaro have to leave you for that time you were
He
hospitalized?
was only allowed 1 hour, and then I was wheeled into a
Mm.
private room. Postpartum was okay. Breastfeeding didn't come super easily for me. And it's still, by the time I left my 5 day stay there, it still wasn't like flowing properly. So we did end up supplementing with formula. I felt I was just mostly anxious about breastfeeding not going smoothly. I feel I had just assumed it would go smoothly, but it was a bit difficult for me. But I really enjoyed the time in the hospital. It was a great stay. Um, a little bit lonely. It was just me and baby and the nursing staff. Um, but really nice meals, treated really well. You feel safe because there's staff everywhere if you have questions about anything. They make it so convenient to just pop to the nursing station and ask for formula. Maybe too convenient. But also they did supply some help with breastfeeding, but I still feel like it wasn't a totally proper latch, and I needed more help from a lactation consultant after we got home.
Interesting. Thank you so much for that. And so I'd love to now go into Kojiro's story. So I feel like your first birth story was a really positive experience. And for your second, you were in the same city. So, easily enough, you could go back to the same place. But you decided not to. And I'd love to hear more about that. So,
Yeah,
first, let's talk about getting pregnant. How was that journey?
again, very easy. My mom and sisters and I are blessed that way. We're fertile and it's quite easy to become pregnant. Actually, though, I did go to the same hospital at the beginning. I was at Sapporo Maternity Women's Hospital again, just at the beginning without giving it much thought. I had such a great experience there, so I thought might as well go there. They have my records on file. I'm familiar with it. And also, I was still going there for some of Ritsuko's vaccination appointments, so it was just familiar to me, and it's a good hospital. But feeling more confident and more that I wanted to lead my birth experience this time, I asked them about the tatami rooms or more freestyle birth, and I would get like a vague answer, like, oh, yeah, you can move around. But in my heart, I knew kind of like, no, I would end up still on the delivery table with many things perhaps out of my control or potentially with interventions which I didn't want. So around 27 weeks, I started reconsidering like maybe alternative options. Yeah, 27 weeks, I started thinking like, what am I doing? I've always been interested in home
Mm,
birth and more natural birth. So why am I at the hospital, even though it was a good experience? Like
mhm,
just thinking maybe I could try something different. And I first heard about Ekubo Birth Center from two friends, one of whom is a midwife working in hospitals here, and the other is a yoga teacher. And neither of them had given birth at Ekubo themselves, but they said it was a good place. So we went there for a consultation, just like an initial meeting, and that was really nice. So meeting Noriko Takamuro-san was nice, and she was just asking general questions about my desires for birth and how my first pregnancy and birth went. And I gave myself 1 week to think deeply about it and decide where we would go. Because it's a big decision that you can't really take back. And it is a big decision meeting this midwife and thinking, okay, it's going to be this exact person who's going to catch my baby. So yeah, I just had to think deeply.
mm.
But I think I already knew then I was leaning towards birth center this time.
Ultimately, why did you choose to move to the midwifery to Ekubo?
Yeah, the top reason was I wanted to move around during labor, and I didn't want to be stuck on the boom bendai, the delivery table. So that was the top reason. Also, I had really wanted it to be like a family birth. I wanted my daughter Ritsuko to be there if the timing would allow. I wanted Kantaro to be there. Um, I wanted to give birth on tatami, like in a room with some natural materials, not a sterile hospital environment. And I really wanted to control, not, I shouldn't say control because you can't control birth, but I wanted to feel empowered to lead the birth this time.
Mm, awesome.
And I, because I had done it once unmedicated and had a great birth experience, I felt a lot more confident that I could do it. But also, I attended a group online doula cafe with Stephanie, Tokyo Doula, and she said, "Oh, birth centers are like such a different experience," and she would recommend it. So that was kind of like the tipping point where I was like, okay, that was the last deciding factor. And also, I should say that they're affiliated with ENA Ladies Clinic. So if there was any like dire situation where I would have to transfer, it's only a 20-minute drive away. So that's some reassurance in the back of my head.
Awesome. I can totally relate to literally all of those points. And then, so how was your last trimester?
This pregnancy, yeah, again, lots of vomiting, nausea first trimester. Second trimester was totally comfortable, wonderful. Third trimester, I just felt more tired more quickly than the first pregnancy. Yeah, it was a smooth pregnancy, but like just more tiring because I had a 2.5-year-old as well to take care of,
Of course, of course.
and I was still working at that time.
Mm. Do you want to mention quickly that you also experienced lightning crotch?
Oh, yes, just like lightning crotches, just sudden sharp pains as if baby is kind of like
Mm.
punching downwards towards your crotch.
Mm.
So, yeah, I had those towards the end. And also, I needed to wear a pelvic support belt. He was just feeling so heavy within my belly.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, and I just loved it. I could have been pregnant a few days longer. I loved it so much.
Oh, that is so awesome. What month was this?
This was all throughout summer. He was,
Yeah,
pardon?
wow. He's a September baby, is that right?
Yeah, he was born September
Yeah.
2nd, so it was nice to be pregnant in summer in Hokkaido. But some days were really hot, but it was really nice to be pregnant in summer.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. That's so cool.
Oh, and I just wanted to mention one thing. I had this time, like first pregnancy, I had a virtual baby shower, which my family kindly set up over Zoom. But this time I had learned about the concept of a mother's blessing picnic or mother's blessing. It's also called blessingway, which is more to celebrate the mother and a rite of passage of birth. So, yeah, I enjoyed that this time.
Yeah, that's so cool. So what's kind of different between a baby shower and a mother's blessing?
The mother's blessing is more focusing on the mother and like pampering the mother. There are many rituals you can do, but for me, I just asked friends and family here in Japan and abroad to send me a blessing, like a poem or nice message, which I compiled in a scrapbook, and also to send me some beads. So it was really like a nice thing. I have beads from all over the world, and I made them into some omamori, like little
Oh my God, that's so
little
cool.
amulet type things for birth. Yeah, I made a bunch of them.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I
Yeah,
absolutely love that.
it was really nice. And also I had hung them up in the bedroom and Richan was aware like this is kind of the altar to pray for baby. So that helped her too to understand like baby's coming. These objects are like symbolic of the baby.
That is such a good idea. I think I'm gonna steal that.
There are many things you can do, like massaging the pregnant mama's feet in rose water, or singing, group chanting, stuff like that. But we just did an outdoor picnic, which was really just nice to be with women and kids in nature towards the end of pregnancy.
That is so, so beautiful. I love that.
Oh, I hear baby Kojiro. I'm just gonna get him.
Okay,
One
sure,
sec,
sure.
okay?
Oh my God, he is
Okay.
so cute. Hi, Kojiro. I know he can't hear me, but
This is
hi.
Kojiro.
Oh, such a cutie. His hair is so long.
Yeah, and
Oh
it just
my.
goes straight up.
Perfect timing because we are
Yeah.
just about to get into Kojiro's arrival to the world, and here he joins us. So, do you want to take us through that?
So I became like obsessed with the moon cycles too during the end of my pregnancy, like wondering, is the full moon? Because maybe you remember there's a blue supermoon around the end of August. So I was really like, oh, is he going to be born on the full moon? Oh, and also in my scrapbook, I had friends and family guess the dates, so everybody was like wondering which date he was going to come. But I finished like a bunch of tasks I would wanted to do. I got a final haircut, and then I felt like, okay, I'm ready, like any day now. But anyways, um, he came on Saturday, September 2nd. So again, it was really nice that Kantaro was off. Richan didn't go to Hoikuen because it was Saturday, so we were all together. And we had gone shopping in the morning. I took a nap, and when I woke up at 1:16 p.m., I had some dull cramping, and I kind of knew like, okay, this is it. It's going to be the birthday. So again, I just wanted to like take it easy, stay at home as long as possible. I also wanted to make sure that the two of them, Kantaro and Richan, were rested before everything got going, so made sure they kind of had a nap too. We called Takamuro-san and she was in Chitose. She wasn't in the city. But we thought, oh, it's okay because we want to take it easy too. I wasn't so uh focused on the length between the contractions. I let Kantaro like take care of that. But I think even at that point they were pretty close. They were already like 7 or 5 minutes apart at that time. And we told her the only positions I felt comfortable in were lying down or on the toilet. And she was like, "Don't sit on the toilet. Like the baby's gonna move down."
Oh, gotcha.
So pretty shortly after, she was like, "Okay, you should head to Ekubo now." So everything was packed, everything was ready. I was a little bit dreading the drive there. Like I hear on a lot of birth stories that that's the worst part. So I was a bit dreading it. It's just a 25-minute drive away. But then in the car, I was at the stage in labor where you're like internal and you don't want to chat. You're just in your own head and body. But then I tried to switch my thinking and think, like, it's today. It's party time. Let's do it and let's listen to music in the car and let's enjoy the day. Yeah,
Oh,
so
cool.
car ride there, and then at Ekubo, the delivery room is on the second floor. So
Yes.
Keiko-san, the assistant midwife or the secondary midwife, helped me walk up the stairs. And at that time, I was just so like relieved, like I'm gonna be in the company of these wise, experienced midwives. Like I felt some relief. We made it there. And actually, I was inspired by you and by so many Instagram videos I watched to film the birth this time.
Yeah, awesome.
Kantaro set it up near my head, but once the room was set up, or our birth bags were out, and he set up the tripod, I felt like, okay, it's time to perform. But I felt like, no, I want to be alone. Like,
Gotcha. Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to just be with Keiko. Go away. So I said, take Richan downstairs, play with the toys down there. Like, I need time alone. And Keiko was really good at rubbing my lower back during contractions. And that was like some peaceful time. Oh, and also about the birth, like I had built up in my head so much about the birth space. I wanted twinkle lights, my beads, playlist, all that stuff, but there was no time for it when the moment came, and then also no desire. I didn't care about that stuff once it was happening. Oh, I want to back up and say I became really obsessed with like listening to birth stories and watching birth videos throughout my pregnancy. Like really obsessed with it. Yeah, I found it really helpful. Like the ones I was looking at too are just mostly unmedicated home births that I was watching and listening to stories. And also like I had really wanted Vichan to be at the birth. So we were watching them together sometimes on my phone. So some people were shocked that she was watching them, but they're not like shocking ones though. They were very joyful births.
Because I watched my mum give birth to my sister. It was at a
Oh
hospital, but it was
wow.
medicated, and yeah, I think I was 7, so I still remember bits of it. And that I think from that point onwards, it kind of changed. Like that was my idea of birth, is that it's a family thing. It's very natural. It's very empowering.
Yes, and I went into this one thinking of it that way too. Like it's a family
Awesome.
event and
Mm,
it's not an overly medicalized event for in my
sure.
case. It's more of a
Yeah.
physiological event or physiological function, natural function. Yes, so at this point, yeah, Keiko is rubbing my back. Um, I'm going through contractions. They're getting closer together. She she used a fetoscope to check baby's heart rate, and also she used the fetal heart rate monitor, the band that goes across my belly. Everything was fine. The heart tones were good. And she asked if she could do one internal check, which I consented to. And she said, "You're fully dilated. You can start pushing soon."
Wow.
So again, I was told that it's pushing time. And again, I was in shock. And I said, Mada, like, not yet. I don't want to yet. And she's like laughing at me, like, what? That's unusual. Like, it's time. Call them upstairs. And I was like, no, I want a few more minutes alone. But yeah, after a couple more minutes, we did call Kantaro and Nichan upstairs. So at this point, I'm laying on my right side with my left leg up. I asked Kantaro to hold up my leg. Kantaro or Keiko is beside me as well, and Nichan is more near my head. And then I consciously tried pushing a few times. Like it was not the fetal ejection reflex where your body just is like doing the work itself. No, I worked with the contractions and pushed, and then soon he was crowning, and I could feel his head coming out. I had my hands on his squishy, wet head, and yeah, I could feel him coming out. Um, I wasn't screaming, but I was doing like deep guttural noises with pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And in like a whirlwind, Takamuro-san came in. We could hear her come inside downstairs, and she ran up the stairs and she said, "I made it!" Like, "Maniaimasu!" And she, like, very quickly, she took Kantaro's position, and he came up near my head, and I was holding his hand. And then at one point, I moved my hand to my lower back, and Takamuro-san moved my hand back to his crowning head. So I like that she did that because she knew how important it was to me. I really had the desire to catch him coming out. So then, a few more pushes. I definitely felt the ring of fire again, like hot stretching sensations as his big head was coming out. But then once his head was out, there was like a gush of liquid, which I asked, "Is it blood?" But it was just, I think, amniotic fluid. I never had my water breaking before active labor started, so perhaps it was my waters. And also, she said the cord was around his neck. So she just calmly, like it wasn't a frantic moment, she just calmly unwrapped his cord. And that moment was really nice. Like after the largest part of his head was out and the gush of liquid came out, I said like, "Oh, kimochi, like it feels good." It was like a nice moment to pause. Yeah, he didn't come shooting out. There was definite pause. And then with a few more pushes, which were more intense, his body came out. And then it was like amazing. I wasn't able in the end to catch him, but he was brought right up to my chest, and it just happened so quickly. And he
Wow.
had so much hair when he was born.
I can tell. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
In that moment, though, too, I want to say, like, prior to him being born, we had discussed, like, is suctioning okay? Which I said,
Yeah.
try not to suction, like, just rubbing his face is okay to remove some excess liquid. But those kind of questions at a birth center, it's nice that you even get to discuss when those type of things might automatically just happen at a hospital, like
Yeah.
in the flurry of activity after birth. Oh, one other thing, like I was still in my own clothing at that time, and they're like pulling down my bra, like get the breast out. And I was like, just a sec, I want to sit up, I want to like strip. And they're like, no, 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 stay lying down. And then a minute later, I was like, no, 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 I want to. So then finally I stripped, and then we had nice skin to skin, which was really
Nice.
nice. And
Oh, cool.
they put like just a nice white gauze cloth over him, but that was nice. Yeah. And then for the placenta, I was really interested in the placenta too this time around after having learned more about it. Like the first time I gave birth, I asked to see it, but it was just a cursory glance at it. But I am grateful I could see it that time. But this time I had like learned more about it and was a lot more interested in it. And this time, actually, I cut the cord myself. Cantor wasn't so interested in it, but I cut the cord, which was nice. Um, Birthing it, both times I don't remember so much because I have my newborn baby up with me, so it's kind of a foggy memory, but it came out intact without complication. I think they had to do some gentle tugging to get it out. Yeah, they waited until the cord stopped pulsing and then I cut it. Yeah, and then this time Keiko-san gave us like a full explanation of it. Like she brought it in like a basin and was showing us the placenta. Yeah, and it was intact, looked good. And then also this time we tasted it. We
Yeah.
had been interested
Wow.
in consuming it. And we were on the fence like the week leading up to birth because for me I didn't think it really would be like for my depleted energy. I didn't think it would be so much of an energy boost just tasting it. It was more out of curiosity and out of like mottainai. It's like sad to just throw away this, it's the only organ that the human body grows and his first source of nutrients, and it does feel wasteful to just dispose of it.
Yes. Yeah.
And if we had a house, like burying it would be nice, but like you told me, Hokkaido's bear country, and
Yeah, so we were the same because in our culture, the placenta, we call it whenua, which is the same word that we use for the ground, whenua. And so after giving birth, you're supposed to return the whenua to the whenua, like you're supposed to put it back in the ground for multiple reasons. And then when we asked at Ekubo, she thought about it for months, like,
oh,
can
she
we
really
not?
considered
Yeah,
it for
she
a long
really, really
time.
considered it. And she did, towards the end, she said she could give us a part of it, but not all of it.
Hmm.
And then when it came down to it, she could only give us the dried cord,
Mm.
which was fine. I was happy to have some of it. We took that cord and we ended up burying it somewhere. And for me, was really emotional. It kind of felt like a baby is her own baby. She's no longer like a part of
Yeah,
me.
she's
Like,
separated. Yeah, it's the last
yeah,
physical, like,
yes.
tangible connection.
Yeah, and I actually got really emotional about it. But I was really interested in hearing people who consumed part of the placenta. So what was that like?
Yeah, so, well, one thing that's uniquely Japanese, she prepared
Mm.
it kind of like sashimi. Like, she cut
Wow.
up part of the main, like, meat of the round part of the placenta into small pieces and a little bit of the cord. And then she served it. like sashimi, like on a long white rectangular plate with some shoyu and sesame oil and some little salt on the side. And we all tasted it. Michan tasted it too. Yeah, so
Incredible.
that was a fun experience for us. I took a video of Kentaro trying it. I think he was the most excited in the end. He was like
Wow,
excited to taste
really?
it.
I
Yeah.
told my husband about it. He's like, no way, never, ever, ever.
Oh, that's how I felt in the week leading up to it because I would Google placenta consumption, and when I would see the images, it doesn't look appetizing. It just at all. But we're both curious, and we're like, this is a once in a lifetime potentially chance to try it. So we were curious. He said it tasted like horse meat, like
Oh,
horse
interesting.
sashimi. For
Wow.
me, it didn't have like a very distinct flavor. He liked the cord. The cord is like chewy, like hormone, like yakiniku hormone. And she said, "Oh, the husbands always like the cord."
Yeah, that's so funny. So, your postpartum recovery, how did that go?
Um, the recovery this time, my postpartum uterine contractions were more painful this time. Like first time around, I think I did have some painkillers. This time I didn't take anything, and I could really feel my uterus like trying to shrink back to its size every time I would initially breastfeed him. So that was a little bit tough. And also another thing about giving birth in a birth center, I was staying still in the same room in the same spot that I gave birth for a couple hours. So that was really nice to not have to move, like not have to be transferred.
Right.
And also this time again, I did have some second degree tearing, which they said maybe I could have avoided if I had pushed a bit slower, but who knows. So that was a bit tough. Like you have to just be sensitive to the area, wash it. That it's always tough to recover from a couple stitches. And also this time I only stayed for 3 days at the birth center rather than the 5-day hospital stay. But I was so grateful to have those 3 days with just baby newborn Kojiro and me under the care of Takamuro-san. Yeah. That's one thing too I wonder about. Like if you do a home birth, are you able to have the private time with just your newborn if you have other children or family around? Like,
Yeah, that's exactly what me and my husband are talking about at the moment because we both want a home birth, but then I mentioned, like, oh, I'd love to just be just me and baby for a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. We're still discussing. We'll see what happens. Quick
no, yeah, I
reaction.
loved that time. She told me to just still try to really rest, recover, do nothing, but I was like very like mentally active, like journaling about the birth, like right after it happened, reading, sketching him. Yeah, but she said just try to relax more.
So, I'd love to know the comparison of the costs between the hospital and the midwifery clinic.
Yeah, so the cost for the hospital back then in 2020, the city subsidy covered 40만 yen. So taking that into consideration, the amount that we had to pay after that was 18만 yen. And then Ekubo, the I think the original quote was like quite similar to hospital fees, and also the rates were higher for holidays or Sundays. So I was also hoping he wouldn't be born on a holiday or Sunday, but luckily he was born on a Saturday. And the cost for that, with the consideration that the subsidy had gone up to Goju man en, the cost we had to pay after was just 3만 en.
Wow.
So it was
Massive difference.
literally a sixth of the cost. Yeah, it was a
Wow.
lot cheaper,
Incredible.
but also for a
Mm.
shorter stay, for a 3-day stay.
Gotcha.
And also, like, the maternity hospital was a dedicated maternity hospital. There were like a lot of extras, like massage service, a photo book, a celebratory meal, like, so just different aspects, but I would choose birth center again, for sure.
It's bottle time. What were some of the differences between your experience at the hospital versus at the midwifery?
Like I mentioned before, like the wait times at the hospital are pretty standard, but at the midwifery practice, the number of pregnant women that she can take on is limited to just a small number per month. So there was no wait time, very relaxed appointments, which I could bring Ritsuko to, just a totally different atmosphere. The birth center is just like a standalone house, so like visiting a house and having very like individualized care. And yeah, it's a house, so it felt clean and comfortable, but not like sterile like a hospital. So depending on your comfort level or what you want, that's something to consider. But the food was delicious at both places. The food was great.
So do you think if you had another birth, you would pick a midwifery again?
Yes, definitely. Or like if we had another child, maybe home birth, but like I said, I really enjoyed the separate dedicated time during the first few days for recovery and bonding with the newborn.
Perfect. Thank you. And another one. What would you say to someone who's on the fence about changing birth care providers mid or late pregnancy?
Trust your intuition. That's why I gave myself a week to decide and like to ask myself what feels best for me and our family. And I believe in the concept of mother baby, like as a synchronistic dyad. So what's good for mother is good for baby. So trust yourself. Like I had some people around me saying too that maybe it could be seen as more selfish of the way I wanted to birth or control certain elements, but what's beneficial for me was going to be good for him. And just have trust in your body too. Yeah, it doesn't have to be leading with fear of things that could go wrong. So that's why I felt confident that a birth center would be okay for us.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And Kojiro, oh, look at him. For those who are just listening, he's jumping around and super happy. I think he knows that his mama is coming back with full attention on him very, very shortly.
He needs some playtime. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, well, I better let you guys go.
Okay, enjoy the rest of your pregnancy. I look forward to seeing your updates.
Thanks, guys. Bye, Kojiro. A huge thank you again to our guests for being brave and sharing their story. And also to you, our listeners. I really hope that you were able to take something from today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. To stay up to date with Birth Stories of Japan and get all the behind the scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at birthstoriesjp. And if you can share this podcast on to others as well, that would be a huge help. Lastly, if you're a mama in Japan and would love to share your story, please send an email to birthstoriesjp@gmail.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.